Take three. Good afternoon, guys. It's Colby Lawson here. And today we're gonna be reacting to a Rev Says Desu video. Um, this one is basically about the crash outs between different content creators. Well, specifically towards Ethan Klein because of the lawsuit. Him suing multiple content creators for slander for you know making a bunch of shit up against him, like these leftists always do. They always have to make shit up because they know they don't have any dirt on someone, so they have to make shit up, you know, pull shit right out of their ass. But of course, good old Rev Says Desu is uh talking about it. You know, 13 minutes and 37 seconds. Hopefully the video doesn't come out to be too long. But hey, if it is what it is. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So, recently a few content creators, namely one of them, you know what? Let's just watch the video and go from there, because I'm not trying to make this a long
Hey, what's up,
video.
guys? Rev here. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the Ethan Klein and Idubbz lawsuit, as well as the other content creators who are weighing in on this and feuding with one another, including Moist Critikal, Hasan Piker, and some of his orbiters. Now, if back in 2016, someone told you that these two would be having a legal battle against one another, you probably wouldn't believe it. But that is the reality that we're living in right now, where Ethan Klein is going scorched earth and filing lawsuits against many people, defaming him, mainly people he used to be friends with. Now, with this whole situation, there's a million clips, a million streams, so much to cover. My goal here is to give you guys the very quick rundown of everything you need to know about this situation and why so many people are debating on whether this is a good idea, and also feuding with one another. So, Ethan Klein, over the last year, has been going on a warpath, suing many content creators for defamation, as well as copyright infringement, most of which are people he was either cool with at one point or was even close friends with at some point. Now, the sixth content creator to receive a lawsuit is none other than Idubbz, who has announced that this is very real and actually happening, and he is in a very tough spot. This one is for defamation. Now, there's a lot of things at play here. Over the last year, we, of course, had the content cop on Ethan Klein, which was filled with a lot of slanderous things, as well as justification for the false CPS call on Ethan Klein and his children, and also the human skulls being sent to his home. But the main thing we're talking about here has to do with the stream from Idubbz a few months ago, where he had this image up on screen for the full duration of his stream. It is a statement from the streamer Destiny, who basically implied that Ethan Klein is likely a predator and has abused his own children. Now, in this stream, not only do we have this diabolical dragon VTuber model that Idubbz was using, but also Idubbz.
What in the world is with people making all these goddamn false accusations of friggin' child sexual abuse and all that shit? Like, what's going on here, man? Like, what is it with people doing that? Like, really? Like, what's with the false accusations this year? Like, I know this isn't a new thing, but like the amount of false accusations, regardless of who they came from, just seem to keep like coming. It's so wild. Like, what is going on today? Is it false accusation year or something? Like, is it false accusation month? I wouldn't be surprised considering that this month, unfortunately, is Pride Month. And a lot of, weirdos, basically the celebration of weirdos who have to shove their sexuality down everyone else's throats. I got nothing against homosexuality. I draw the line at transgenderism. However, just there should never be a month celebrating sexuality. That's not That makes no goddamn sense. It's stupid, okay? Pride Month should not exist. You should be keeping your sexuality to yourself unless you're interested in someone or someone is interested in you. You shouldn't be just shoving that in people's faces. You know, really that's besides the point though. It's still pretty crazy how like all these accusations are coming out, bro, and it's like people haven't learned that false accusations are a really bad thing to do because not only does it ruin people's lives, especially men's lives, you know, it also they also make it harder for victims of those horrid that special kind of evil to be believed. You know, they're all those kinds of accusations only make things worse for everyone. Like seriously, man, this is why lying is a bad thing to do. Seriously, because a small lie turns into a big one, and even there's a reason why lying is forbidden in one of the Ten Commandments because it leads to stuff like this. Seriously, man. You know, Look, I may be a sinner myself, but falsely accusing someone of a heinous crime like that, of any crime really, is just wild. Nah, man. That's not. No. No, man. The fact that we still have to keep having this conversation about how we shouldn't be falsely accusing innocent people is ridiculous, man. Because you would think people should have gotten it by now. But unfortunately, there are idiots, and there are worse people. There are worse people than idiots. There are evil people. Demons. I mean, sometimes they're not demons. They're just straight up pure human. But wow, man, just wow, just wow. Right on the screen, right there, man, right there. Wow. Don't you just love it when people, falsely accuse an innocent man of something that he didn't do? With no evidence, nothing, just, that trust me, bro tone. Just trust me, bro. Just trust. Nah, bro, you getting your ass out the airlock. That's it. You know, you know, one of the funny things is that usually, usually, um, I think sometimes when playing Among Us, uh, usually a lot of the times when I'm playing Among Us and someone a crewmate falsely accuses an innocent crewmate of being an imposter, and we find out that the crewmate's not an imposter, hopefully, before we throw them out the air, before we get them out the airlock, you know, you know, um, if we do end up getting them out of the airlock, then we confront them. And even then, I confront them. You know, even if, some people don't see it as a big deal, I still confront them because it's like, bro, almost cost us the game and almost cost an innocent crewmate their life. Really? Are you the imposter? Because it sounds like this is pretty much something the imposter would do. But I know that's besides the point, but it just goes to show you shouldn't be lying like that. And even if you're just being ignorant, like you don't actually know something and you're pretending to know, or basically assuming something, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, you know, saying all of this without any actual evidence is wild, bro. This is the kind of shit that should be punishable by law. Like, that should carry a hefty sentence in prison. Just for an accusation like that. When if proven false. Because you don't falsely accuse innocent folks of doing something they didn't do. That's how innocent people get put in prison. Whether they're men or women. That's exactly how innocent folks get put in prison. And God help you if you're a man and you're falsely accused of a crime like that. You know, nah, bro. Nah, you good GG's, man. GG's. because that shit will follow you everywhere you go. Even if you never get charged because, there's no actual evidence and the judge scolds or even punishes the person who falsely accused you. There are still going to be a lot of people who believe that you did something you were falsely accused of doing, even when there's no evidence or evidence that you didn't. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Idubbz, for a very brief few seconds, said that, well, he doesn't really believe that this is the truth. But of course, you can defame someone while believing that what you're sharing is not actually the truth. And also, he had it on his screen for 2 hours. And this is representative of what Idubbz has been doing for the last year or so in his streaming career, where he just says really crazy stuff and tries to pick fights with anyone that he thinks will give him attention, including his former friend, Ethan Klein. And this isn't just slanderous statements about him, but it also involves Ethan Klein's kids, which should be forbidden territory, especially for a guy who used to be close with Ethan Klein and even knew his kids.
Remember, folks, them kinds of folks, them folks, those kinds of folks, they do not care. They do not care. They will go after innocent people for no reason at all, other than just cause. Just cause. These aren't even witch hunts. Like, this is just straight up, wanting to ruin people's lives. Wanting to hurt other people physically or emotionally just for the fun of it, or just because they're that delusional. Either one, even both. Just because they're evil. Let's call it what it is. Those folks are evil for that. Did the same thing to Charlie Kirk. They do the same thing they do that to anyone. They will do that to anyone, even their own. You got kids? Oh, they're going to go after them. It's so disgusting. But when you do the exact same thing, it's a problem. It is a problem to them when you do the exact same thing to them. And mind you, us folks try not to do that because we're not those people. We try not to stoop to those folks' level. But sometimes it's very difficult to do. Sometimes it's very difficult to avoid doing that. Because, them folks need to learn a lesson at some point. However, they'll get theirs. They'll get theirs. One way or another. It's just only a matter of time. You have to be really low. You have to be evil to do something like this. Go after innocent folks that did nothing wrong. And involve an innocent man's family. An innocent person's family in this. Just like with the Carmelo Anthony situation. Dude was proven to have murdered an innocent teen. And guess what happened? The minute he got sentenced to 35 years in prison, which honestly is way too little for what he did, he should be rotting in prison. And then his ashes should still be in the same cell. In fact, no, his corpse, when it dies, should be kept in that same cell. Seriously, he should be rotting in prison. But the prisoner, there's going to be somebody in that prison that's going to get him. Just watch and see what I tell you. Somebody's going to get him in that prison. Somebody's going to get him. Trust me, there are folks who do have standards in prison. They do have there are a lot of inmates who do have standards. Someone's going to get him. Someone is going to get him in prison. Trust me when I tell you. You can only protect an evil human being for so long before they end up dying. He's going to die in prison, trust me. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe he's not going to survive in prison too long. Regardless, people kept defending him. People keep, making threats to his family, shit like that. Keep talking crap about his family, including the victim's family, the murder victim's family. Keep talking shit about his father, shit like that. All because Carmelo Anthony is black, so and they use that information to, well, push their agenda that they're the victims of everything known to man. Like, geez, man, you know, I can only imagine, I can definitely see why God was very regretful when he made humans the first time. I would be really pissed off too. I wouldn't even want to make humans anymore after that. Nope, nope. It's a bullet. It would be a bullet dodged. Nope, 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 nope. I would be really ticked. You know, because that's just awful. You know, that is just awful. Very awful. You know, innocent folks. They're just something. I don't know what it is with them evil folks, but they just, you know, so much evil makes me want to take the gloves off and just start fighting. Just get my hands dirty and bloody, because that's how things should have been. That's how things used to be. You get your hands dirty, and it was understandable. You weren't treated like a criminal most of the time. You know, I'm only 23 years old, so I haven't really lived that kind of life. I haven't even, I wasn't born in the Wild West, you know, or even in the time when things were a little tiny bit better. I was born in 2002, but like this is just to see the world going like this, it's heartbreaking, you know? You know, I don't know, you know, what the future holds, but God help us. I'll tell you that. You know, these people are just straight up evil, man. They're evil, really evil. You know.
To share a message like this is truly disgusting. Now, one of the criticisms people are launching towards this latest lawsuit is that Destiny is the one who said it. Why isn't Ethan Klein suing Destiny, instead suing Idubbz? Well, Ethan Klein would explain this in his stream. There's a lot of reasons, but it really boils down to he believes that Destiny was making a more offhand remark that was supposed to be taken as a joke, but Idubbz has doubled down and shared it. And also, he is suing Idubbz in Canada, which people think is unfair, including people like Moist Critikal, as we'll see. But that just seems like a smart move, and also that is the home turf of Idubbz, who's going to need a lot of help, especially since right now he's in Canada, living in the basement of his mother-in-law. But also, let's not forget about the bad blood here. They used to be friends, family friends, and Idubbz has made a living trashing this guy and sharing slanderous messages about him and his family. Now, if you're worried that Idubbz is some very unfair target here, let me remind you that he literally does not support free speech.
Screw Idubbz. Who cares about that dude? Like, really? Screw that dude. I mean, talking crap about a man's family is wild. Like, wow, dude. You gotta be a real wuss to do something like that. I mean, half of that stuff, the dude wouldn't even say to Ethan Klein's face. So, like, you know, really? Come on, man. That dude's just a coward, and he knows it. He just needs the content farm. He needs to make money off of unnecessary drama, you know, that he started. It's pretty obvious at this point. He just didn't think it was gonna go this far. Like every other instance where I've read, Reddit story, stuff like that, where people did stupid stuff and they thought, uh, and they didn't think things would go that far. And, it's like, dude, What do you mean you didn't think things were going to go that far? What did you expect? You know, I haven't just seen it on Reddit stories either. It's like, I've even seen in videos where they didn't think where people didn't think, who do crappy stuff, didn't think, things were gonna go that people, the victims were gonna take that, they didn't think the victims were gonna escalate. The people that they're annoying the crap out of were gonna escalate. They didn't think that shit was gonna go that far. But but they failed to understand why things went far in the first place. When you bother someone to the point, when you bother someone relentlessly, even bully them, whatever you want to call it, you know, people are gonna go far. Because they want you to understand that you pissed them off, and they want you to know that you pissed them off, and that they gave you several chances to get yourself together and leave them alone, but you refused to do. You kept bothering them. So yeah, you can't say that someone took something too far, that what X is or whatever is unfair. When you're the one instigating and doing things you have no business doing. Like, you know, like many of those ridiculous leftists, that dude is only freedom of speech for himself and for his own ideology. Anyone that he feels opposes him, he doesn't want them talking. He doesn't want them having free speech. That's the thing with those leftists. They're major hypocrites. Just like the Nazis were. And they call us Nazis. Nah, they've been looking at the Nazis, right at the Nazis all along. All they have to do is just look in the goddamn mirror. And they'll find them.
You won't ban me, you're a free speech advocate? No, I don't think I am, actually.
Oh, you're not, huh? Well, why should you have freedom of speech then? You shouldn't have freedom of speech either. These folks are major hypocrites, man, mind you. These folks are. Oops, my mouse. These folks are major goddamn hypocrites, mind you. Like I said, they are hypocrites. They don't want you having free speech. They don't want you to speak freely. They want to speak freely themselves while you are suppressed and oppressed. They want to create. They are creating issues where there aren't any, so they can pretend and claim that they're oppressed, just so they can oppress you. That's what these folks do. They create issues that never existed in the first place and play victim, and then they take the response, turn it around, and then they oppress everyone else. That's exactly what, fascists do. Leftists are fascists. They are Nazis. And mind you, the Emperor Palpatine literally pulled the exact same stunt in Revenge of the Sith. Dude literally played victim and manipulated Anakin Skywalker into murdering Mace Windu right then and there. And he also tricked every single individual in the galaxy into, well, most usually by force anyway. And if they weren't, swayed, then he just used force. He tried to play victim in front of everybody, and it worked. It worked, for a long time. A very long time it worked. He got all the support he needed. He basically got a blank check. That's peak fascism. That's fascism right there, man. And those folks are good. I don't want to say they're good at it, but they're not exactly terrible at it either. They are still idiots. These people are the Nazis. They are the fascists. They just call us fascists and Nazis because they're guilty of it. They know they're guilty of it, and they're also under the assumption that we are also Nazis and fascists. In fact, not just that, but they also know that if they call us Nazis and fascists, then somehow they'll be less guilty. that will also be equally responsible for whatever they do or however they feel. They're trying to make they're creating problems and trying to push them on us, their problems onto us, so we look guilty while they look clean. While they look completely innocent. They're not stupid. Well, they are pretty much stupid, but they kind of do have some intelligence.
So obviously he's not too keen on free speech, so this is a pretty ironic moment. But now we get to the Moist Critikal commentary on this. He made a video about 2 days ago talking about this, and it's 36 minutes long. And you can see 67,000 likes versus 11,000 dislikes, probably the highest number of dislikes you'll see on a Moist Critikal video. Obviously, people are divided about this whole situation, but to sum up Charlie's comments, he basically said he largely disagrees with this choice. He thinks that it'll have a cascading effect on other YouTubers, and he thinks it's unfair that he's suing him in Canada, and he thinks this whole thing is out of spite for his former friend, which, yeah, definitely true, and I think it is fair that he's suing him in Canada. That's where Idubbz is currently located, and they have much more lax law.
I mean, yeah, I also agree. I also think it's very fair because, I mean, if you're out here, if you're out here defaming someone and calling them a pedophile and accusing them of molesting their children, well, claiming that they molested their children, whether you were joking or not, or whatever the heck you were doing. Oh no, because that was Destiny I was doing that. Regardless of where you are, if you're out here making accusations like that, you shouldn't be surprised when you get sued. Because you're defaming someone. You are literally defaming someone. And you're playing with someone's life as well. Because all it takes is for someone to have the wrong idea or to actually believe that and start trying to attack the dude, or even worse, murder him. You don't just make false accusations like that. That literally puts someone up in the life of his. That literally puts innocent lives in danger. That puts an innocent life in danger. You don't do shit like that. So it's absolutely fair that he's being sued in Canada. I mean, he made the accusations, and now because he can't prove it because he knows them to be untrue, it's on him. Like, if he defamed me, I would definitely sue him. Like, you don't just do that kind of stuff, because if you don't do something about it, then they're going to get the idea that, oh, they're not going to do anything. I can get away with talking. I can get away with saying things about them that's not true. Nah. Imagine what would happen to him if people actually, if someone who believed those accusations tried to murder him. No, that dude's playing a dangerous game with an innocent life. No, dude. You don't get to put someone's life in danger like that and ruin their life on top of it, and get away with it and not get any consequences for it. So he deserved the lawsuit. Shoot, I hope Ethan Klein gets him for everything he's got too.
Laws when it comes to defamation, it's easier to prove in Canada. That's Idubbz's fault for going to Canada during all of this. But a lot of people look at the comments that underlie this whole thing, which involves the allegations against Ethan Klein and what he is being accused of doing to his own children. They're saying, I don't really care. Like, I don't really care that it might be a bit vindictive. You don't cross that line and start slandering someone in that way, especially when you knew him and his family and know how heinous these remarks really are.
Exactly.
But of course, with the situation, Hasan Piker would have to weigh in because, of course. And there is a long clip here where he says a lot of things while literally funneling food into his face, which is like the personal pet peeve of mine. I find it absolutely obnoxious when streamers are doing that. But that's just me, and besides the point. But throughout his little rants, he is very angry at Charlie, which makes sense because Charlie actually called him out for the shock collar events, and he full-fledged believes that Hasan shocked his dog and is wrong for that and is lying.
Hasan knows exactly what he did. Him trying to pretend that he didn't abuse his dog, that he doesn't abuse animals is just wild, bro. There's proof of it too. Like, come on, man. You can't just sit here and say, "Oh, I don't abuse animals," when you're caught doing it. Like, nah, dude. I'm genuinely surprised he hasn't been, arrested for that at all. Like, that's, something you would usually go to jail for. But then again, he's in California, so it makes perfect sense. He's in California, so them people don't really care. They don't care. They really don't care. And I can guarantee you why. I think, and I already know why, honestly. I already know why. Like, you know, I mean, of course, this guy, of course, the terrorist of the of course, the terrorist of the century would show up to and throw a temper tantrum and throw a whole goddamn tantrum and have a meltdown over, being, how do I say it, being called out for being a piece of garbage. Look, dude, I don't know what planet you think we're on or what country you think you're in, but in our country, good old America, we call out people for abusing animals. We call out people for doing evil things. Whether you're from the country or not. If you don't like it, you can always leave. There's always the option to leave. You know, some people might miss you, but most of us won't. Seriously, man. You don't abuse animals here. Regardless of what state you're in, you don't do that. That's evil. Because that pretty much shows that you're on the path of doing the exact same thing to humans, and let's not pretend that he won't do the same thing to innocent people either. I could just see the life sentence in the future. I could just see it. I could just see it. Like, nah, dude. You don't get to abuse animals and then play victim when you're called out for it. Like, nah, bro. Nah. People will mess you up for that stuff. And honestly, it's justified. You know, the fact that this dude even gets away with half of the stuff he says and does is just bonkers. But then again, like I said before, he's in California, so it all makes sense. You know, in California, as long as you're a leftist, you can do whatever you want. Because the politicians there won't make an effort to stop you. In fact, they'll basically lock up anyone who's not a leftist before they lock up, leftists. You know, criminals in general. Seriously. California is a pro-crime state, no matter where you go in that state. We've seen that with the goddamn riots, the domestic terrorism in that state. It's a pro-crime state. There are way too many states like that, but California and New York stick out the most. And we know that. However, the fact that this dude is talking shit about Moist Critikal, that's a very unwise decision. Very unwise if you know a thing or two about Charlie. That's a very unwise thing. You don't call you don't talk shit about him when he's justifiably calling you out on something you did or said. You don't you don't talk back. You just listen, and then you improve yourself. You improve your behavior. Okay? You work on bettering yourself. That's it. He criticizes you for doing or saying something or saying something. You listen. You don't talk back. You just fucking listen. And then you take his criticisms to heart and you improve yourself. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's not that difficult.
About it. But in his commentary between funneling food into his face, he would basically say that the comments that we're talking about here that was on Idubbz' stream were not something that he should be suing him for, and that basically he needs to answer to these accusations, and that that's not really a fair basis. And also, he's going after Charlie and playing as a fence sitter, and that he's not doing enough, even though he's basically agreeing with.
Right, of course, because fence sitters are worse than unhinged leftists and terrorists. Right. You know, I find it so funny that the only people who usually complain about fence sitters are leftists. Unhinged leftists, which is the majority. They're the only ones who complain about fence sitters. The only ones who do that. Like, bro, shut up. No one cares about the fence sitters, bro. That's not their problem. That's no one's problem. That's just your problem. If you don't like it, that's too bad, man. Go cry. Cry to someone who cares. Matter of fact, why don't you cry to your false god and your pedophile of a prophet? Maybe that things will work out for you then. Seriously, man. These people, this dude gets on my nerves. People like him get on my nerves. You know, every time someone even says something about him, he has to come on. He has to do a whole live stream, have a complete meltdown. You know, and start doing what he normally does, having a whole meltdown, saying, "Oh, you're all wrong. You're all bigots. Blah 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 blah. Screw America." Blah, blah, blah. Like, he brings up so much unrelated shit, dude. It's not even funny. It's like if it's like he's like what was it he's like the Birdman but worse. He's the type to bring up the highway of death. While he's the type to just interrupt a conversation about like or a discussion about like the weather, and just start talking, and then just start sharing his whole goddamn backstory, and how he survived the highway of death or something. Like, bro, no one was talking about that. Where did you come from? Like, this dude, he is so unhinged, it's not even funny, bro. Well, sometimes it is funny. His meltdowns are just really funny. Like, bro, people are laughing at you, man. They're fucking laughing at you. People are laughing at you. You are a laughing stock. Unfortunately, you're also making our country a laughing stock, but people are laughing at you. Like, come on, man. Get yourself together. Grow up, dude. Like, you got to be older than me at this point. You have to be older than me because I'm only 23 years old. You need to grow up, man. Like, you need to find some way better to do than being a domestic terrorist or a performative wannabe politician. Because that's clearly not working out for you. That hasn't worked out for you. But yeah, of course this dude's gonna, have a whole goddamn meltdown. Like, he does this every single time someone even mentions him. It's like speaking of the devil. The minute you speak of the devil, he's already there. You know, he's just there. This guy is the exact same way. You speak of Hasan Piker, he's already there, dude. He just shows up, uninvited. Like, come on, man. No one asked you to come here. All I did was say your name, bro. Go away. All I did was say your name, bro. No one asked you to come here. I ain't invite you here. Get out. You not invited. I just can't with these unhinged leftists, man.
With a lot of the points that Hasan is making. Some point. Also, it's very ironic because Hasan is talking about how just completely unnecessary this lawsuit is and how frivolous it is and how vindictive it is.
I mean, whether or not the lawsuit is vindictive is up for debate. But, like, frivolous? How is it frivolous? How is the lawsuit frivolous? when you have one guy accusing someone else of heinous crimes, the kind of crimes that could easily get you killed. You know, keep in mind, people can get killed for false accusations, bro. Especially in the sexual nature. I don't think this dude realizes. This dude never knows anything he's talking about, man. Like, frivolous. Since when did you become a lawyer, bro? Like, first and foremost. And second of all, since when have you been living under a rock this whole goddamn time? Like, I'm so confused because I may not be a lawyer, but even I know this is not a frivolous lawsuit. Because if you're sitting here saying, if I were to say that Rev Says Desu is a rapist and he raped his wife, and I had it, on a screen, on my live, right where everyone could see it, even if it wasn't in big text or anything, he could sue me. Because not only could it damage his reputation, it could also tear his family apart. And on top of it, that could emotionally destroy him. And he could even get killed for an accusation like that.
Meanwhile, days ago, he was threatening to sue more Pegasus because he dared to criticize him in YouTube videos and even went as far as to hope and imply he would want to get the law enforcement of his country to get involved and even possibly execute him as a result. So that's a bit hypocritical. But, of course, when Hasan talks, the orbiters have to activate. And the most terminal Hasan orbiter, Mike from PA, weighed in on this. And like I said, we're trying to keep the clips to a minimum here, but this one is of critical importance.
I think that's fine. So if a guy pays for my tab, I think
I'm getting your attention.
Mike from PA, ladies and gentlemen, that's the Alpha GigaChat who routinely threatens people online and has even put bounties out on content creators' heads, including Destiny, which don't bring that name up around Hasan. He might actually start getting nervous. But, of course, Moist Critikal would respond to these claims, among others, from Mike from PA, who basically said that Charlie's not doing enough because he's not weighing in on other lawsuits, but Charlie basically says, I'm not as terminally online as I used to be, and I'm just not aware of these things enough to talk on them. Let's watch this clip.
Just me mentioning that I'm not online as much as I used to be was apparently like a highly debated topic.
The guy whose entire career is front-running whatever's going viral is saying that he doesn't know what's going on the internet. All right. I mean, obviously, we got to take his word for it, right? Let's see what videos he's been making. Lego. Watch Mojo got even more pathetic. Degenerate cringe. Lego vigilantes. Lego scandal keeps getting messy. Department responds to the Lego scandal. Lego scandal is getting extremely dangerous and scary. Cringe officer embarrasses himself. Lego scandal keeps getting crazier.
The gist of it is, when I was talking about the defamation lawsuit, I also mentioned that Ethan has other active lawsuits against other creators, and I called him the Nintendo of YouTubers because he's become extremely litigious. But I didn't dive into those other lawsuits because I didn't know much about them. And that claim is apparently extremely hard to believe because everyone thinks and assumes that I am terminally online like I used to be 2 or 3 years ago. But when I said that's not the case, there are quite a few people that just don't believe me.
So his point is pretty obvious, but I want to point out as well, Mike from PA's points, what exactly is he driving at, right? He keeps showing largely that Charlie's talking about the bricks and minifig situation, which is a huge one, and one that Charlie's been routinely covering almost every single day. So pointing out that he's wrapped up in one big story doesn't prove that he's aware of every single thing going on the internet. But Mike from PA is a disingenuous person. He's a Hasan orbiter. I mean, what do you expect, right? But overall, Ethan Klein actually has responded to Moist Critikal and has been relatively cordial, basically saying that Charlie's coverage was fair and it's okay that he disagrees with him, but ultimately he's a father and he's protecting his children and feels like this has gone way too far. In fact, literally as I'm recording this video, he is responding to Moist Critikal live on the H3 podcast, so we'll see if there's anything additional to cover in the future there. But overall, this all comes back to Idubbz, who's got some tough sledding ahead of him, because this is not a copyright infringement lawsuit. This is defamation, different stuff, and also this is going to take place in Canada, where the defamation lawsuits are very easy to win. And for Idubbz, he's sweating. I'm sure he's very nervous about this. He tried to apologize to Ethan Klein, but it wasn't accepted. And you know what? It wasn't just one isolated little event. It was routine attacks on him and his family and putting his kids.
The funny part about this is that, you know, this moron right here, of course. What's going on here? This moron right here, of course. This idiot. Of course, he would try to make Moist Critikal seem as if he's some sort. You know, this guy's not mad because, you know, he's Moist Critikal apparently acting hypocritical or lying. No, he's mad because Moist Critikal, you know, Charlie is not, you know, he's not commenting or providing any background or whatever to the lawsuit. Because why does he need to exactly? What's the point of doing it? You know, what's the point of doing it? Like, I don't get it. Like, who cares, dude? You're a Hasan orbiter. You're not to be trusted or even taken seriously, dude. I don't understand why these folks think that, you know, most people take them seriously, because I highly doubt most people are taking them seriously. If anything, they're only mad because Charlie's not, you know, an unhinged leftist. You know, he's not a terminally online unhinged leftist. So, of course, you're not going to see him out here covering, you know, the things that they want him to cover, because they're only looking to spread their agenda, and he's attacking them and they're attacking him for not doing it, for not doing what they want. You know, it's so pathetic. You know, dude, no one cares about your leftist agenda, dude. No one cares, man. Go cry. No one cares. At the end of the day, Ethan Klein is cooking, you know, the rest are not. Okay? The folks that he's suing are pathetic. And you are also pathetic for even thinking that Moist Critikal has to cover something that has nothing to do with him. Well, rather, something that you only wish him to cover so you can continue pushing the narrative. You're only looking for him to support your narrative. And he's not doing that. Because he doesn't know anything about the lawsuit, really. So there's no need for him to go over something he doesn't know. You folks want him to just be as ignorant as you are. And unfortunately, man, you didn't get what you wanted. You know, these folks have one heck of a rapist mentality. Like Louis Rossman said, shout out to Louis Rossman. But these leftists, these unhinged leftists, they have a rapist mentality. They will take you, they will rape you, and you will like it. Which is their logic. You will do what they say, you will like what they do to you, and you will not, how do I say it? you will not, you will not resist them, you know, and you won't, you won't say that they did something wrong to you. Because in their eyes, you know, they did it because reasons. They did it because you deserved it. That's how they operate. You know, for no reason, man. Other than just cuz. Just to push an agenda. It's honestly just so pathetic. It's laughable. And they wonder why folks don't take them seriously. Can't really take an unhinged leftist that's terminally online seriously. It's a foolish thing to do, to take them seriously. Very foolish.
Copyright infringement lawsuit. This is defamation, different stuff. And also, this is going to take place in Canada, where the defamation lawsuits are very easy to win. And for Idubbz, he's sweating. I'm sure he's very nervous about this. He tried to apologize to Ethan Klein, but it wasn't accepted. And you know what? It wasn't just one isolated little event. It was routine attacks on him and his family, and putting his kids into a weird spots because of these accusations. I think he messed up big time, and if he's going to have to pay the piper for this one, well, that's on him. If he wanted to get people to tune into his Twitch streams, he should have done it another way instead of going to, quite frankly, gross routes like posting that image and using it as a backdrop for his entire 2-hour-long stream. You basically reap what you sow. Whether or not you really like Ethan Klein or even like this lawsuit, I think you can understand why he has such a chip on his shoulder for this guy and so many former friends who have completely turned on him for wrongthink and have launched endless attacks and slander against him. I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Ethan Klein is on a warpath. He is suing everyone who's doing this stuff to him, and it shouldn't have surprised Idubbz. He was literally asking for this, and he's getting exactly what he was poking at. But anyways, that's really the quick rundown of everything going on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, consider liking the video, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for daily uploads, as well as multiple streams live here on YouTube every week. But overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
Well, that was the video. Wonderful video. As always, Rev is the GOAT. You know what he said. If you like the video, subscribe, leave a like button, turn on notifications to all. You know the drill. Same thing with mine. If you like my reaction, subscribe, leave a like, leave a like, even leave a comment, and ring the bell. But that's if you want. Again, you're not being forced to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Because I'm just doing this on the side. I'm not making a job or a hobby. I'm not making a career or a job out of this, okay? This is just something I do on the side now. So, hey, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But hey, Colby Lawson is out.